Hi, this is Tom with the 5th episode in this series where we make a detailed keyboard in Blender. In this episode we'll be texturing the keycaps using various tools within Blender such as UV unwrapping and image texturing. This series includes 4 modelling tutorials and 2 that deal with texturing. I'm going to upload a new episode each day, so make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out. I'm going to assume that you know the basic functions of Blender, but to recap, to add an object is Shift A, to switch between edit mode and object mode is tab, to zoom in and out is scroll wheel, and to orbit around your part is middle click and move your mouse. So as I said in the introduction, we are going to be today making the materials for the keycaps. We're going to be using UV unwrapping and we're going to be using texture mapping. So we're going to map the texture of specific lettering onto the keycap. So let's get started. So we're going to get started by hiding our switches, our stabilizers, and our PCB, and our plate, but I've already hidden the plate. We're going to position our 3D cursor around here on the first keycap, and then we're going to press Shift A to add in some text, and that needs to be about 5mm radius. That looks good. I've done some tests in the past, and 5mm look good. And make sure you can see the entire thing, so the entire Z-axis. So position it on your first keycap like this. I would recommend using an Arial type font. So I'm going to change mine to Arial by going into the settings, font, and then regular. And then I'm going to change it to Arial because that gives the most realistic font. And then we're just going to type in each of the letters for each of the keys for every single one of the keys. This is for if you want it on the top face. I'll get to if you want it on the side face later on. This is an easier method. It's just time consuming. It's not that difficult, it just takes forever. So try to get them in the same place each time, around the same area. So I've just finished all the keys, but you'll notice I left the Windows key out, and that's because we're going to add it manually now. So to do that, we're going to add in a plane. I'm going to place it around over here. And that looks about the right size, but it's a bit small. So we're going to scale it up. That looks good. And you'll notice that a Windows key has a slightly tapered side bit here, this bit here. So we're going to scale that in to make that only slightly. That looks good. And now we're going to Control R to add an edge loop. And we're going to put it in the direct middle of it, and then we're going to do the same for this, for the same for the middle, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to add another one either side of the center line like this. And this is just going to give us a few lines to make the cross shape. So now that looks pretty good, but we're going to need to separate each of these lines, of these planes, by deleting the lines in between. So delete edges and then delete these edges. So delete all these edges until you've got your Windows key, and that looks pretty good. So that's how I did that. Maybe you can scale it in a bit, that's a bit big. That looks perfect. So once you've done that, you can UV project, and that's just done by closing all your switches and your stabilizers and your PCB and stuff. Just leave your keycaps and keycaps alone. So you need to close your text as well. You're going to select all your keycaps and make sure one is orange, is a lighter orange selected. So then go into edit mode and face select mode by pressing 3. Now we're going to select only the top faces by selecting only the viewable ones. So like that. So you saw I just dragged the mouse up like this. And now we're going to go up to UV unwrapping, project from view, and the bounds mode. And that's just gonna unwrap the only viewable or selected faces. So if we go into UV editing, we can see that that's worked. It kind of looks like the keycaps. They're kind of stretched out, but that's fine. And that means that we're ready to start shading. Add back our text and our Windows key, and then we're going to hide our keycaps. so there's only the lettering showing. And now we've got a few settings to change before we render out this image, because that's what we're going to do. We're rendering it out and then saving that image, and we're going to use that for the shading. But before that, we're going to add a camera. I've fully positioned a camera before this recording, and it's the right resolution and in the right place, so you want to do that. So add a camera by pressing Shift A, camera. Make sure it's in orthographic mode by going to the camera settings, orthographic, and then you can change the orthographic scale and the shift. Sometimes you might need to change the clip start to a smaller amount because it kind of clips the text, which is not helpful. But once you've added in the camera and you've positioned it in the correct place, you can then go into world settings, which is here. Change the colour of the background to white because we want it as bright as possible, and change it to strength as 1 because that's a good amount. You can change our resolution to 200% because we want these to be as sharp as possible. And then go into render properties, EV, film, and then we want it on transparent mode because that's very important if you want to change the colour to anything apart from black. So once you've changed all those settings, you can give it a quick render by pressing F12, sorry, and that looks perfect. So now we can save that image by pressing Shift S. I'll save that as image. There we go, that looks good. And then we can close the render tab. Right, so now we can bring back our keycaps. We don't need anything else at the minute. So then we can go into the shading tab. This is where it gets exciting. So shading, close your keycap set like this, and then we can hide the text and the plane and your camera. You don't need your camera either. So we're going to start off by making one of the keycaps, so just one. And we're going to make a new texture by pressing New. And we're going to add in a image texture by pressing Shift A, texture, image texture. And then we're going to open up our lettering and plug it into base colour. So you can see that it's already kind of placed it on, but it's not in the right place. So for that, we're going to go into edit mode of the keycap, select it, and then down here you'll see that we've got a little bar. We're going to expand that, and this will show our UV editing tab, but we need to apply it. So we're going to go into editor type and then going to go UV editor. So this is using the lettering PNG, and we're going to place you can see that this is the general shape of the keycap. We're going to select, and sometimes this doesn't work. You just have to go back into layout, press escape, go back into the shading, and then it sometimes works. There we go. And then we can select that and move it around. So position it how you like. So that looks brilliant. So that's what we want. That's a pretty good escape key. We're clipping again. So we can go to change that. We can go press N, clip start 0.1. And as I said in another video, it's just clipping off the edge of the frame. So that's a pretty good escape key, but you'll notice that the rest of them are not, well, the same. So they're not the right texture. So to do that, we're going to select all of them, and then we're going to select this one. Now I've already done that. I'm going to press Ctrl L and make links materials. So that's just going to give each one the same material. And you'll notice that some of them, text is not in the right place. So to fix that, we're going to do the exact same for each of them as we did for the escape key. We're going to select it, go into UV mode, and we're going to move the keycap around, move the unwrapped keycap around so it's in the right place. And that looked good. So do that for each of the keycaps. And if the scale isn't right, you can scale it on this using the same thing, so you can get this right lettering size. So you can fine tune it a bit more. And that's it, we're done. That looks brilliant. So unless you want black keycaps, we're going to add in a mix node to change the colour of the add colour mix RGB. And we're going to use the factor of this to decide what colour we want. So I'll put a picture of it on screen of the node setup I used for each of my keycaps, but I used a system where the colour was picked and it was put into the first input of the colour mix node, and then the second colour was the lettering, and that needed to be a very, very stark difference, stark contrasting colour. So I inverted the colour I chose and then converted it to black and white. And that's basically what we're going to do now. So we're going to add in a input RGB, drag this node into the first node of the mix RGB, then we're going to go colour, invert, and we're going to select get that colour, and we're going to then go converter RGB to black and white and connect that node to that node. It's got the colour, inverted it, then converted it into black and white. Then we're going to go to colour ramp, so we're going to make three different options, so like this, and we're going to have it on constant, so that looks about right. So we want it either those three colours, and then we're going to place that in the second colour chart. Whatever you change the colour to, you will always be able to see the lettering. So if I change it to white, it's darkened it, and if I change it to dark, it's lightened it. So that's a really powerful, tool. So I'm going to change mine to like a nice, make a red keyboard. Let's make a red keyboard like that. And if you want to change individual keys, you just make separate materials. So by pressing new, so say I want a blue keycap like that, you just make a new material by pressing this new button, and then you can change that to yes. And that's for face down keys. If you wanted to do side on keys, you would, so when you were taking photographs of the tech, you would take individual lines at a time and then position them on the sides of the keycap. And you would, instead of taking the top down view, you'd take the side view of the keycaps. When you would select the side view of each one. It's exactly the same process, but a different step. So now we want to add some texture, because these are currently completely smooth. We don't want that. We want them to have a slight bit of roughness. So to do that, we're going to go into texture and noise texture. We want a noise texture, and we're going to plug that into our roughness, and then we're going to add in a vector node, vector normal map. Plug the normal into normal, and then colour into the colour. And at the minute, that is that's too strong. We want to really make it go down a lot, so we're going to change that to 0.05. I'm going to change the scale to around 1000, because we want it to be really minute changes, so you can see in there. So now we're going to do that for all of the others by changing the material 1, and we're going to do the same as we just did for all of them. So texture, noise, factor in roughness, and vector normal map. And you can play around with the settings to get them to your satisfaction. You may like this, you never know. Thanks for watching, hope this was informative, and yeah, thanks for watching, see you in the next video. All of that, like, subscribe, comment if you've got any suggestions or improvements or different ways. There's many ways to do this. I'd be really interested to know what you would do differently, and yeah, thanks for watching.